Walking around the aisles of Gencon, there are many great fantasy creations, ranging from large models to excellent minis. Many of these miniatures were on show from the various companies that produced them. Not directly tied to a game, yet officially licensed by George R.R. Martin, was Dark Sword Miniatures' Game of Thrones line. We grabbed an interview with Jim Ludwig.
And Jim actually has the ability to make the miniatures from George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones. Jim, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I guess the first thing to know is that it's a license for the books, and so it's directly with George Martin, and it was pre-HBO. And so obviously they're not the likenesses of the actual HBO actors that are in the Game of Thrones series. And so these I work with George Martin directly. This is something that's very near and dear to his heart. He basically hand-selected Dark Sword, to take over the miniature line.
Now, it's worth mentioning that Dark Sword don't just do Game of Thrones. You guys have a huge range of miniatures, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We also do our own line of fantasy miniatures, and we got like anthropomorphic critters, little animals and stuff like that. And so we've got over 500 miniatures in the range. George Martin is a huge part of the range, obviously, and it's a very popular range, and so we're putting a lot of effort into that.
Okay, and if people want to know a little bit more about Dark Sword Miniatures, where can they go?
Darkswordminiatures.com. So
simple as that. Well, Jim Ludwig, thank you very much, sir.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Sticking with Game of Thrones, we made our way over to Valyrian Steel, the company responsible for making replicas of the weapons used in HBO's hit series.
Now, I'm sure many of you are very familiar with Game of Thrones, HBO's award-winning series. We've got Chris here to explain a little bit about Valyrian Steel. Chris.
I'm Chris from Valyrian Steel. We have the license to produce replica arms and weapons from both George R.R. Martin's book series that the show is based from and the show itself. And so what you see here are some of these swords that we do. We get the actual props in from HBO, and we get to analyze them and play with them. But ultimately what we're doing is we're trying to make a replica of them that's true to what the prop originally was. And then we can sell them to all the wonderful fans out there that want to buy them.
What seems to be your best seller?
Right now, of the products we have out, the best seller is the Hound's Helm, which is just really big and wicked and I think really intimidating.
Excellent. Is there a new product you have coming out? Is there a new a pre-release that you're just demoing here?
The ones that you see here, the newest one is the Loras Tyrell helm that's over there. That one, we just got the approved prototype in from HBO, so it's not even up for sale yet. Maybe another week it'll be up for sale for pre-order, so that's by far the newest product that we have.
Excellent. Well, good luck with the rest of Gencon, Chris. Thank you.
Of course, you can't use these weapons without hurting someone. So what happens if you want a good old-fashioned sword fight in relative safety? Live action role-playing, or LARP, is the answer. Weapons are made from foam, and points are assessed and scored depending on hits landed. Aside from all the gaming at the table, there was another great aspect of Gencon that is exclusive to the event: True Dungeon.
Okay, so now we're outside Hall B, and this is the home of True Dungeon. Anybody got a clue what that is? No? Okay. Well, we have someone from True Dungeon here. Allegra, how you doing?
Hello, doing well.
Okay, what is True Dungeon?
Essentially, what True Dungeon is best known for is that it is like a live-action D&D meets Legend of Zelda dungeon. And basically what happens is you get together with your party, you all have different roles, and then you all proceed through the dungeon. And depending on whether you do combat or puzzle, you're either fighting monsters all the way through, or you're trying to solve these incredibly tricky puzzles. Every single year they come up with something new, and it's an evolving story. So this is actually the first part of a 3-year-long story.
Out there in the exhibit halls, there are these tokens for sale. Some of these are going for like hundreds of dollars. What's the deal with this? Do you use these in game?
This is your equipment, your spells, your random items that you happen to be carrying with you. And every year they put out new ones, and there's a lot of them that are actually related to specific events inside the dungeon. So things that you would need for your adventure.
When you've finished, you've killed the monster, you've finished the final puzzle, whichever one you took, what do you get? What's your prize?
They get stamps, treasure stamps, and they redeem it at the end for, they get special tokens.
So is True Dungeon only available at this con?
Only at this con, so come and get it. Gen Con.
Once a year event, huh?
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for speaking to us, Allegra.
Oh, thanks for interviewing me.
Thank you.
Dressing up to join the party in True Dungeon is optional. However, dressing in costume is a key factor at Gencon itself. The costume contest is a large part of the con, and so is the parade. Some people have spent countless hours making sure their costumes are correct. Others just dress up for the fun of it, as fantasy characters or in historical or steampunk attire. All forms of costuming were available to buy, from armour to Victorian-era clothing, swords and shields, and even a vendor selling wooden moustaches.
Get right up, ladies and gentlemen, claim a mustache and make a $5 to go one of these lovely days on your face. Where else can you say that in public?
Gencon gives you the chance to get away from it all and dive into games that are worlds away. Dress as your favourite character or solve puzzles and fight monsters. Gencon's tagline is the best 4 days in gaming. There's no denying it, and the crowd that Gencon draws is proof of its success and popularity. Well, that about wraps up Smithville's coverage of Gencon 2013. Lots of games, lots of fun. I'm sure we'll be doing this again. Thanks for joining us.